الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. I ask Allah to make this another beneficial sitting where we are learning the Adhkar from the Kitab and Sunnah from this book, The Fortress of a Muslim. It's not hidden from any one of us that the more we remember Allah, the more Allah will remember us back. And the less we remember Him, then the less He will remember us back. The more we remember Him, the more blessings we will have in our life, the more guidance, the more assurance, the more tranquility, the more from the dunya we benefits also, the more provisions, the more protection. There is no limit. And there is nothing blameworthy about mentioning the name of Allah and remembering Him. Everything has a cap except for the dhikr of Allah. And we looked at last week or the week before that there are certain times of the day where remembering Allah is even more emphasized. And this is now chapter number 27, Adhkar al-Sabah wal-Masa, the Adhkar that should be said in the morning and in the evening. And we looked at last lesson as an introduction, we looked at the importance of it and the virtues and some of the things that a person can gain. And we looked briefly at an overview of Kursi and Ikhlas and Falaq al-Nas. And we said that what seems to be apparent, Wallahu A'lam, is that these should be stated after Salat al-Fajr and Salat al-Maghrib, and it's not actually part of the Adhkar which are from the morning and the evening Adhkar, because there isn't any indication to support Kursi especially to be from the Adhkar, which is the morning evening. We have Falaq al-Nas, and this is just refreshing what we talked about last time. We have Falaq al-Nas, however, there are different narrations that the author has brought here in the footnote that I have. Man qalaha thalatha marrat, whoever says this in the morning and the evening 3 times, hina yusbih wa hina yamsi, it will be sufficient for him in kulli shay. It will be as a protection and a goodness for him from everything. So we have that as a narration. But what supports the understanding that we said that it's recommended for a person to say this after Maghrib and Maghrib and Fajr, which is that there are other narrations which the Prophet ﷺ emphasized it to be done after the prayers. So that's what stands out. Now, what we have here is we have a narration, and it's not even a narration, we have a sentence mentioned by the author underneath chapter 27, and there is no number to it because it's not a hadith. I don't know how it is in the version that you have, but what I have here, Adhkar Sabah Masa, Alhamdulillah wahda, wassalatu wassalam ala man la nabiyya ba'da. There is no number next to that, it's not a hadith. And in the footnotes it says here that Anas narrated, radiyallahu anhu, and this is just a general benefit in remembering Allah, that the Prophet ﷺ said that if a person or a group of people they sit down and they remember Allah from the morning so after Salatul Fajr in the morning, until the sun has risen, remembering Allah, engaging in things which are good, this is better and more beloved to me, the Messenger of Allah ﷺ said, this is more beloved to me than him freeing 4 slaves from the children of Ismail. Now, to give that some context, why did the Prophet ﷺ say that? Is because after Ismail alayhi salam settled in Mecca, the tribe that he married into, the Jurhum, they became Arabized. Ismail became Arabized. He wasn't Arab himself. He and his progeny became Arabized, but then they got overcome by other tribes that came after them. And that meant that from Ismail alayhi salam, his own progeny, from the house of Nubuwwah, they became slaves. So the Prophet ﷺ is saying that these are the best kinds of slaves at that time that a person could possibly free. So the Prophet ﷺ is saying here 4 servants that a person can free, or 4 slaves that a person can free, is not even equivalent to a person remembering Allah from Salatul Fajr until the sun rises. And he said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that a group of people who remember Allah after Salatul Asr until the sun sets is better for me than freeing 4 servants from the children of Ismail. So now, what we learn from this is that we have a period of the day which is better for us to remember Allah, is from the Adhkar al-Sabah al-Nisa. However, this sentence here, Alhamdulillah, wahda wa salatu wa salam ala man nabiyya ba'da, I've tried looking at this in other versions of Hisn Muslim, as in other publications and other authorings from different ulama, where they have collected, in their view, Adhkar which are from the morning and the evening Adhkar. Ibn Taymiyyah has one, Ibn Qayyim has one, Ibn Qayyim has Wab al-Sayyib, Ibn Taymiyyah has Kalim al-Tayyib, Ibn Baz has one, Rahimahullah, and even Muhammad ibn Uthaymeen has one as well. May Allah have mercy on all of them. I didn't find anything which suggests that a person should say Alhamdulillah wahda wa salatu wa salam ala man la nabiyya ba'da from the Adhkar which are the morning and the afternoon Adhkar or the evening Adhkar. And I tried looking for a hadith, couldn't find a hadith. So I asked Shaykh Asim al-Quryuti, Hafidhahullah, that is this prescribed from the morning and the evening Adhkar? And he said yes. He said it is, because there are general ayat and virtues, and we'll talk about some of these afterwards, that talk about sending tasbih, tahmeed, takbir for Allah, making salat salam from the Prophet ﷺ in the morning and the evening. That's all been prescribed. So therefore, if a person says Alhamdulillah wahda wa salatu wa salam ala man la nabiyya ba'da before he starts his morning and evening adhkar, then there's no harm in this. So I said to the Shaykh, this particular sentence, if a person says it believing that it's from the adhkar, wouldn't that be an innovation? Because there's no dalil for it. And that is making, applying something which is general to a routine act of worship. And after we had a short discussion on that, he then said, yes, what we've been discussing about is correct. If a person was to say this, just generally, then there is no harm in it. Actually, it's khair. He's sending peace and blessing of Allah, he's making tahmeed of Allah, and to speak of him, etc. There's no harm in that. However, if a person believes that this is from the Adhkar Sabah Masa, if he thinks that this is from the Adhkar in the morning and evening, or he becomes consistent into it and he believes that this is part of his routine, then this becomes a problem. Or there's a particular virtue in saying this sentence, then there is a problem. What the author has done, now the author, Shaykh Sa'id al-Qahtani, Rahimahullah, he's actually got this book and he's actually got an explanation of this book. And I looked in the explanation as to why he's put this there, and the reason why he's put it there is he said that before you start the adhkar of the morning and the evening, it's good to start with making tahmeed of Allah and sending peace and blessing. This is what we do in the beginning of the lecture, this is what we do in the beginning of khutbah. Anything which is important, you should begin with the name of Allah and sending peace and blessing. So this is why he's put that in the book. So now, for me, that's problematic, because if a person was to read this, and if you look at the footnote doesn't illustrate that it's not from the adhkar of the Sabah and Masa. Therefore, if a person does it every now and then, that's fine. If a person does it habitually, not believing it to be from the Sunnah, that is fine also, as the Shaykh said, Shaykh Asim. However, it's not from the adhkar, which are the morning and the evening adhkar. Hadith number 77 is been narrated on the authority of Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu in Sahih Muslim, that the Prophet ﷺ, when he used to enter, كان النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا أمسى, whenever the Prophet ﷺ used to enter into the evening, or whenever he used to enter the morning, he used to say أصبحنا وأصبح الملك لله والحمد لله لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له الملك وله الحمد وهو على كل شيء قدير. We have entered the morning within the dominion of Allah, and all praises for Allah. La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu. There is no God worthy of worship except Allah, and He has no partners. And all dominion belongs to Him. Lahul mulk wa lahul hamd wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir, and He's able to do all things. Rabbi, as'aluka khayra ma fi hadha al-yawm wa khayra ma ba'dah. O Allah, my Lord, I ask you of the goodness of this day and the goodness that comes after it. وَأَعُوذُ بِكَ مِنْ شَرِّ مَا فِي هَذَا الْيَوْمِ وَشَرِّ مَا بَعْدَهُ. And I seek refuge in you from the badness and the evil of this day, and anything which is bad within it, or evil within it, and evil after it. رَبِّ أَعُوذُ بِكَ مِنَ الْكَسَلِ. O Allah, I seek refuge in you from laziness, وَسُوءِ الْكِبْرِ, and the evilness of being arrogance and pride. رَبِّ أَعُوذُ بِكَ مِنْ عَذَابِ النَّارِ وَعَذَابٍ فِي الْقَبْرِ. عَذَابٍ فِي النَّارِ وَعَذَابٍ فِي الْقَبْرِ. O Allah, I seek refuge in you from the punishment in the grave, or the punishment in the fire, and the punishment in the grave. There's a footnote here that this wording is the wording of what a person would say if he enters in the morning. So this is what he would say after Salat al-Fajr. But if a person was going to say this in the evening, then he would say Amsayna wa amsal mulku lillah, and he would change the Yawm to Layla. And I think that's in the footnote, even in English anyway. The explanation, Asbahna wa asbah al-mulku lillah. Asbahna, Amsayna, means we have entered into the morning or into the evening, and this is via the permission of Allah. Now what this sentence shows is that we are affirming the rububiyyah of Allah Jalla wa Ala. Asbahna wa asbah mulku lillah. But there is no dhikr here specific. There is no specific glorification. This is just a statement. We have entered into the morning, and this morning is from the dominion of Allah. So what we can learn from this very first sentence is that we are affirming a rububiyyah. Now this is a common pattern, and I think we talked about it last time also, is that from these adhkar in the morning and the evening, you will find a very strong correlation from all of these adhkar between the rububiyyah and uluhiyyah. All of these adhkar are affirming the rububiyyah and the uluhiyyah within them. So this first statement is the rububiyyah. The second statement, walhamdulillah. Now we have uluhiyyah. La ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharik. Now we have uluhiyyah. Uluhiyyah now means that we are turning our worship to Allah alone because of the favor that He has given to us from creating us and providing for us and sustaining us. Lahul mulku wa lahul hamdu wa huwa ala kulli shay'in qadir. And what we see now in this next sentence here is something which is very important. And this is a life lesson for us all, which is that rububiyyah is needed for uluhiyyah, and uluhiyyah is needed for rububiyyah. And one will support the other, and one is not independent of the other. You can't have rububiyyah without uluhiyyah. You can't have uluhiyyah without rububiyyah. But there is something important here. Rabbi as'aluka khayra ma fi hadha al-yawm wa khayra ma ba'dah. Oh Allah, I ask you for consistency upon rububiyyah and uluhiyyah. As the day alternates into the evening, and as it goes back to the afternoon, and as it goes back to the morning again, and as it goes back, you are constantly saying asbahna wa asbaha, amsayna wa amsa, and you are constantly saying this within the rububiyyah of the morning and the rububiyyah of the evening, and you are constantly making the oneness of Allah in your dhikr and your worship every morning and every evening. So that's why we say after that, Rabbi as'aluka khayra ma fi hadha al-yawm. I'll ask you from the goodness of what there is in this day or in this evening, and the goodness that will come after it. Now, what does after it mean? وَخَيْرَ مَا بَعْدَ. What that means is what will come after, straight after this morning or straight after this evening. We ask you for that continuation of rububiyyah and uluhiyyah and the goodness within it. And there is another meaning that we can gain from this also, which is that, oh Allah, make this consistent throughout the rest of my days on this dunya. So I ask you from the goodness of this day here, and all of my days whilst I'm in the dunya. And I ask you from the goodness of this evening, and the goodness of all of the evenings that I ever have in my life, based on rububiyyah and uluhiyyah, and that He doesn't take it away from us. So we have a literal meaning, and we have a metaphorical meaning. وَأَعُوذُ بِكَ مِنْ شَرِّ مَا فِي هَذَا الْيَوْمِ وَشَرِّ مَا بَعْدَهُ. O Allah, I seek refuge in you from the badness of this day and the badness that is within it, and the badness that comes after it. And again, here is the idea of consistency upon rububiyyah and uluhiyyah, and a fear of it becoming weak, a fear of negligence, a fear that is taken away from us. So now we can see the importance of these adhkar in the morning and the evening. Rabbi a'udhu bika min al-kasl. O Allah, I seek refuge in you from laziness. Now the ulama have stated that kasl is laziness, But there is a difference between kasal and ajz. Ajz is we were talking about inability from within. Kasal is talking about inability from outside. Ajz, if we have to look at a delicate difference between ajz and kasal. Ajz is when a person doesn't want to be guided. He doesn't want that ruby. He doesn't want the goodness of that day and what comes after. He doesn't want the goodness of that night and what comes after. He doesn't want to be protected from the evil of that day and what comes after. He has no concern. Ajz is a complete inability from within. And this is why the Prophet ﷺ said, "Ihris ala ma yanfa'ak wasta'in billah wa la ta'jiz." Protect what is good for you and seek what is good for you, and seek Allah's assistance in gaining what is good for you, and don't become unable. So what we can learn from this is that ajz is an internal form of no ikhlas, an internal form of negligence, an internal form of not having any concern except for the life of this dunya. But kasal could be that a person is sincere, a person actually wants to do something good, they actually want to come to the masjid more often, or they want to pray in jama'ah, or maybe they don't even pray at all, some people, but they have a good intention inside. They have a good intention inside. However, kasal here is talking about the external form of inability. So now as you can see, ajz is worse, but kasal is also blameworthy. But then we have another description that Allah talks about from the munafiqun. And Allah's protection is sought from this because the munafiqun are described of having ajz and kasal at the same time. Allah says about them in Surah Ahzab, قَدْ يَعْلَمُ اللَّهُ مُؤَوِّقِينَ مِنْكُمْ. Allah knows about the mu'awwiqeen from you. And the ulama have said that mu'awwiqeen are those people who are completely barren in any kind of goodness, internal and external. And this, is something that I'm sure we are all frightful of, where a person is not sure internally whether he's on the right track, or externally whether he's on the right track, or whether it can be plucked away from him. This is what the Prophet ﷺ used to seek refuge from here. Rabbi a'udhu bika min al-kasal, I seek refuge in you from the external inability. The beginning of this dhikr is giving nourishment to the soul so that they don't have the internal inability. وَسُوءِ الْكِبْرِ. Kibr, the Prophet ﷺ has highlighted, is batar al-nas, or batar al-haq, is to reject the haqq and to think that he is better than other people. Arrogance is when a person is not humble in what Allah has given to him from the khayr, whether that's religious goodness or whether it's a dunyawi goodness, and he thinks that that has been given to him because of his own skills and because of his own right towards it. Kibr and arrogance is one of those characteristics that was very first displayed against our father by Iblis, la'natullah alayh. And it shows you that every goodness and every badness has a salaf. It has a generation that came with it before. And the evilness of arrogance, you can see how much badness has been spread onto this dunya because of that arrogant person. All he has to say right now is say, "Oh Allah, forgive me." That's all he has to say. And if he does that sincerely, Allah will forgive. And this is what Allah does day and night. However, his arrogance remains from the moment that he was created until Yawm al-Qiyamah. We're talking about millions, maybe even billions of years. His arrogance multiplies, if even, and it remains consistent on that. So the point here is that the Prophet ﷺ used to seek refuge from arrogance. And arrogance is when a person thinks that he has been given something out of his own right, and then he uses that to give himself a level of degree and status above other people. Rabbi a'udhu bika min Adhab fi nar wa adhab fi qabr. Oh Allah, I seek refuge in you from the punishment that is in the fire and the punishment that is in the grave. And the Prophet ﷺ used to do this day and night. Why did he used to do this day and night? Because even just looking at it is an adhab. Even just looking at the punishment of the grave and looking at the fire is a punishment in itself, let alone going anywhere near it, let alone even having the slightest of it touch your body. So the Prophet ﷺ is teaching us that we need to be conscious and we need to seek refuge in Allah from it, as if it is in front of us on a daily basis, every morning and every evening. Because our bodies and our souls can't even hack looking at it, and they can't even be afflicted with it from even in the slightest. And subhanAllah, even if a person has his iman increased, and the more he makes dhikr of this, and the more he's conscious of the unseen, even thinking about the fire and the qabr and the punishment that is there, can be a punishment for himself. And this is why the Prophet ﷺ, and there's many texts in the Quran and the Sunnah which tells us not to show too much emphasis on the elements of fear. Because if a person was to do that, they will become either lazy or they will become unable, which is what the Prophet ﷺ used to seek refuge in this application in itself. However, there's a balance. There's a balance between hope and fear. There's a balance between knowing that Allah is going to accept your rewards and give you your Jannah, while simultaneously thinking that if you do slip up, or the actions that you've done have not been enough, or all of those times you've done something wrong could come back to haunt you. And therefore, seeking refuge in Allah from the hellfire and seeking refuge in Allah from the punishment in the grave is something which is very serious, because belief in the unseen makes it firmer in the iman of the person. So in conclusion of this dhikr here, hadith number 77, which is on the authority of Mas'ud from, and that's been narrated in Sahih Muslim, which is that a person, when he enters the morning and the evening, he enters with rububiyyah, affirming it for Allah. And when he affirms it for Allah, he thanks Allah that He is giving him another day and another evening. That then is singled out to Allah alone, and this now becomes his uluhiyyah. This uluhiyyah and this rububiyyah being solidified in a person, the level of strength then will affect the level of quality, will create a level of servitude for that servant. It will create a level of protection for that servant, and it will protect that person from the evils that come throughout the day and night consistently for the rest of his life. And when he is taken away, and day and night he is asking Allah to give him strength in iman and strength in his body, and he asks Allah to give us the humility that we need to attain proper servitude from within and without, and external, from within and internally and externally, throughout those days as they alternate in the evenings. When that all comes to an end, the last part of this dhikr talks about the adhab al-nar and the adhab al-qabr. That the evil that we feared for ourselves in the mornings and the evenings could be a sense of, it could be a form of punishment for us, despite us, trying the best we can. However, we don't know if it's been accepted. We don't know if we have done it properly. So the Prophet ﷺ used to supplicate to Allah every morning and evening to give us the good of the dunya and the akhirah as the days alternate, so that we can prepare for the unseen, and that He gives us the Jannah and not the Nar, and that He gives us bliss in the qabr and not the adhab. But all of this is connected to the rububiyyah and the uluhiyyah. Before we move on to the next hadith, as we normally do, we can look at some of the ahkam that we can gain from this dhikr. One of them, and we've looked at the meaning of Allahumma before, and we have here now the Prophet ﷺ talking about Rabb. What's the meaning of Rabb? Sustainer, the creator. Let's look at creator first, the creator. the sustainer, the provider. Some of the ulama have said Rabb also includes the legislator. So the Prophet ﷺ here is supplicating by Rabb. What the ulama have said is that a person, when he supplicates with Allahumma, Allahumma basically means, Oh Allah. And it is not correct for a person to say, Ya Allahumma, because then he is saying, Oh Allah. But when it comes to Rabb, he would say, Ya Rabb. So there is a delicate difference here between Allahumma and Rabb. And they're used and they're interchanged a lot in the Quran and the Sunnah. But this is a very important difference between, using Allah, Ya Allah, and Ya Rabb, and Allahumma. When you're using Allahumma, we don't need to use Ya. Now, for me, when I was looking at this as a benefit, another question came into my mind, which is, can a person say God instead of Allah, or Lord instead of Rabb? What do you think? So the question here is it permissible for us to translate Allah into God and what's that one? Rabb into Lord? It's not allowed?
Rabb is more exalted.
Rabb is more exalted, yeah. Okay, so this is a very good point, that the linguistic definition of Rabb and Allah in the Arabic is nowhere near as similar as it would be in English. However, what the ulama have stated here, and this has been mentioned by Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, he has actually fatwa on this in Majmu' al-Fatawa, which is that there is a difference between, why is this important? This is important because we are giving da'wah, we are speaking to people, and people sometimes have to translate some of these things. However, that's one obvious reason for it. However, I remember in recent years there's been a controversy where a person said that, and I don't like to say this name, but I'm only saying this for the sake of benefit, that Ganesh, it doesn't need to be said in the Masjid of Allah, but this name here can be an equivalent to Rahman. Therefore, you can say Allah is such and such. And obviously that is incorrect. But what he has done here is that he has taken the idea of translating the name of Allah too far, and even applied it by using the names that belong to idols, which is obviously incorrect. So now, what is the criterion? Yeah, so.
For example, Khuda.
Khuda, exactly, yeah. That's another one.
Taymiyyah says that you're allowed to use the word Khuda.
Yeah.
But Khuda, this is widely used in subcontinent.
Yeah.
Even big learned scholars, they use Khuda.
Yeah. Khuda. So now, Khuda has a Persian Majusi origin to it. However, it's in our language. So again, God, I haven't looked at the linguistic function or origins of God and Lord, but I'm pretty sure that they'll have some kind of shirkiyat aspect to it also. So now here's the point. How can we differentiate? When does it become permissible? So now the ulama have said that if a person needs to translate the names and attributes even of Allah for the sake of learning or for the sake of necessity, then that becomes permissible. So for the sake of learning, what does Rahman mean? How can you explain what Rahman means without knowing what Arabic is? It's not possible. So in this scenario, you can say that He's the most gracious and most beneficent, etc. So now that doesn't mean we are ascribing the most gracious to Allah. It doesn't become a name and an attribute of Allah because Allah is Rahman. And these names cannot be translated for its exact meaning. However, and this is where it becomes, difficult for some people to differ. Names and attributes of Allah with the ulama are known as a tawqifi, that it has to be legislated with text, because otherwise we'll be speaking about Allah without any proof. And Allah says in Surah Al-Husna, to Allah belongs the most lofty and the most noble and the most perfect names and attributes, so worship Him by them. Therefore, Allah teaches us about Himself to us, and we cannot make up translations and we cannot make up new names and attributes for Allah. So now there is a difference. Are we ascribing God or Lord or anything else to Allah? In that scenario, it would not be permissible. For the purpose of ascription, not allowed. However, for the purpose of learning and the purpose of translating due to necessity, where, for example, a person doesn't know Arabic, so a person, you want to explain to him the oneness of God. If you use the word Allah, he won't know who Allah is. He might be off-put by it, etc. So for temporary measures, you're using out of necessity a translation. From that scenario, it would be permissible. And there's fatwa from Ibn Taymiyyah and others from the ulama who say this. So now, example now here. Can we use Khuda? If you're using it for the sake of ascription, then no, it's not allowed. That becomes imitation of Majus. However, if you're using it for the sake that it is part of your language, and you're doing it for the sake of teaching, and you are teaching people that this is your Lord, etc., then that would be permissible. Now, there's also another benefit here, which is that some of the ulama have looked into, is that it was actually the way of some of the early Sufis. I'm just looking here, the time. This particular bahth here doesn't mention the time when it was introduced, but I'm thinking that it was introduced some way after the time of the Salaf, that the Sufis actually started to talk about Allah with using other languages other than Arabic. So it wasn't something that the Salaf were used to. It wasn't there readily available at the time of the Salaf. It was actually introduced by some of the Sufis, and they started talking about Allah Jalla wa Ala by using other languages. And when they started to do that, then it became somewhat normalized. The next hadith here now, we have hadith number 78, which is been narrated in Sunan Tirmidhi, where the Prophet ﷺ said, or used to say every morning and evening, Allahumma bika asbahna, wa bika amsayna, wa bika nahya, wa bika namut, wa ilayka nushur. The author here has put down that it's in Tirmidhi, but I believe that it's also been narrated in Sahih Bukhari, where the Prophet ﷺ, whenever he used to enter the morning and the evening, he used to say, "Oh Allah, for you we have entered the morning, or we have become alive or resurrected, so to speak. And when we enter the evening, O Allah, for you we live. وَبِكَ نَمُوتُ, and for you we pass away. وَإِلَيْكَ النُّشُورُ, and for you is the resurrection. Now, when a person says this in the morning, he would end with nushur. بِكَ أَصْبَحْنَا وَبِكَ أَمْسَيْنَا وَبِكَ نَحْيَا وَبِكَ نَمُوتُ وَإِلَيْكَ النُّشُورُ. However, if he was to say this in the evening, he would say, بِكَ أَمْسَيْنَا وَبِكَ أَصْبَحْنَا وَبِكَ نَحْيَا وَبِكَ نَمُوتُ وَإِلَيْكَ النَّصِيرُ. There's a difference between nushur and nasir. We're going to look at that. So now the Prophet ﷺ used to say Allahumma. We've just looked at that now, and we've looked at this before when it comes to other chapters and the meaning of Allahumma and some of the benefits behind it. Bika here is because of you, and some of the ulama have added is for you. O Allah, because of you I have entered into this morning, and O Allah, for you I have entered into this morning. Wa bika. Again, we have bika repeated more than once. Wa bika amsayna, wa bika nahya, and again, for you and because of you we have entered the morning and evening. And for you and because of you we are alive, and for you and because of you we pass away. وَإِلَيْكَ النُّشُورُ وَإِلَيْكَ الْمَصِيرُ. What's the difference between Masir and Nushur? When a person starts the morning, even in his dunyawi sense, he thinks that he's got the rest of the day, and the end of the day is far away. Your journey, and this is now looking again, Rububiyyah Uluhiyyah, the purpose of your life and the reason why you've been created. When you wake up in the morning, 6 o'clock, whether it is 5 o'clock, whether it is 8 or 9 o'clock, you are going to go back to sleep. Some of us may be back to sleep 1, 2 o'clock. Some of us a bit earlier, 9, 10 o'clock. Salatul Isha. Right. When you wake up in the morning, 9 o'clock, you think, okay, I've got all the way until 22 hours, 2200 hours, 2300 hours, and it's a long way, and I've got a lot to do. This now, in this dhikr, we learn that when you are alive, from the moment that you've been entered into the dunya, you've got a path that you are treading. And that path is going to end soon. Your daily lives is an example of how you have been created and put into this dunya, and your death and your end is coming soon. And for the person who has rububiyyah and uluhiyyah, and he is fully aware of the reason why he exists and why he's been placed here, then what he will do is he will prepare for 11 o'clock. He will have some targets that he wants to. If it becomes enough, you will be frustrated. Everyone's frustrated, whether it's a dunyawi reason or a dini reason. If a day has been wasted, people get frustrated. I've wasted a day, I've wasted an hour sometimes even. So now, this dhikr is teaching us that when we start the morning, you are reminding yourself that I have been set, I've been put on this track, I've started the track and I'm on the track. And soon it's going to become night and my track is going to expire. Right now I've got energy and soon I will not have energy. Right now I've got prosperity and soon I will not have. Right now I've got my strength and I've got all ability to take benefit from the ability that Allah has given me, and soon all of that's going to be taken away. Whether it's your health, whether it's your wealth, whether it's your free time, whatever it is, وَبِكَ أَمْسَيْنَا. And again, this resemblance is being mentioned in the same dhikr. So, أَصْبَحْنَا نَحْيَا أَمْسَيْنَا نَمُوتْ. There are two parallels here. So when you start the morning, it's like you have been given life, your fitrah, your innocence, your new chance. Tawbah. And we know from the Hadith Qudsi that Allah Jalla wa Ala accepts by the day and the night and as it alternates. And when he gets towards the evening, he realizes that there is weakness. He realizes that now even the sun is leaving him and the night is coming and the darkness is coming and the grave is getting close. Masir and Nushur. Nushur is when he starts off in the morning. Nasir is when he starts off in the evening. Because now when the darkness overtakes him and he enters Salat al-Asr, or whenever he's saying this, maybe after Salat al-Maghrib, the Nasir is now to Allah. The Nasir is the path that you are being pushed forward and you have no choice. Nushur, at least you have a chance. Nasir, you are being pushed forward and you have no choice. So all of this now, as we can see, there is a strong correlation between rububiyyah and uluhiyyah. There's a strong correlation between our morning and our energy, and our evening and our, or should I say, not energy, and the beginning of our lives, and the evening and our passing away. Shaykh Abdul Razak al-Badr, Hafidhahullah, said, the Masir reminds us of the one who originated us, and the one who we're going back to. And Nushur reminds us of our non-existence. We were actually dead. We didn't exist. And that we will be resurrected, just like we didn't exist in the first place. So as you can see, there is profound meaning in just this one small statement from the Messenger of Allah that he used to say every morning and every evening. Now with this as a benefit, the ulama have actually asked this question: how many deaths do we actually have? How many times do we die?
Every night.
Every night? Okay, but what we're talking about is an actual death. Because Prophet ﷺ said, Naum is the sister of death. It's not actual death. Your ruh is taken away, but it's not actual. But what actual death? How many actual deaths do we have?
3.
Allah says in Surah Al-Ghafir that those people, when they are resurrected in Yawm al-Qiyamah, قَالُوا رَبَّنَا أَمَتْنَا اثْنَتَيْنِ وَأَحْيَيْتَنَا اثْنَتَيْنِ. Oh Allah, we have died twice and we lived twice. Now, the khilaf, so now we have 2 lives and we have 2 deaths. The khilaf based on this now is when were those 2 lives and when were those 2 deaths. So some of the ulama have said, what seems to be obvious is that we have a life here now and we have a life then. And we have a death now, and we'll have a death again after the barzakh. 2 lives, 2 deaths. After the barzakh's death, the final one, then there is no death. And that is external, what am I saying? Internal. I lost my English. Eternal. Everlasting. طيب. Others from the ulama have said we have already lived and we have already died. We have already lived and we have already died. And this is the opinion of many of the ulama. Ibn Mas'ud, Ibn Abbas, Hassan al-Basri, Tahaq, Ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn Kathir, others from the ulama. And when did we actually live? We actually lived when Allah created us from the back of Adam alayhi salam. It talks about in Surah Araf. Adam alayhi salam was there, and from his own back, Allah displayed the progeny to Adam. So we were all there, and we were all alive. That was our first life. So then Allah Jalla wa Ala asked us, Alastu bi Rabbikum, am I not your Lord? And we said, Bala shahidna, of course, you are our Lord. And then Allah said that this is your life here. Now, you can't come on Yawm al-Qiyamah and say that I was unaware of it. Then you were caused to die. That was your first life, that was your first death. Now this is our second life, and our second death will be after we have passed on. Whatever the case, this dhikr here, وَبِكَ أَصْبَحْنَا وَبِكَ أَمْسَيْنَا وَبِكَ نَحْيَا وَبِكَ نَمُوتُ وَإِلَيْكَ النُّشُورُ وَإِلَيْكَ الْمَصِيرُ, reminds us again, alternation, consistency, day and night. As much as the day comes and as much as the night leaves us, and the other way around, we are prescribed to renew our rububiyyah and our uluhiyyah. The next hadith here now is in Sahih al-Bukhari and the authority of Shaddad ibn Aus, which is hadith number 79, where the Prophet ﷺ said that whoever says this in the morning and he dies in the evening, all of his sins will be forgiven. And if the person says this in the evening and he dies by the morning, all of his sins will be forgiven. He called this in this hadith Sayyid al-Istighfar, the master, the chief of all istighfar. Everything has a Sayyid, and even istighfar has a Sayyid. The Prophet ﷺ said that the Sayyid of istighfar is Allahumma anta Rabbi, oh Allah, you are my Lord, la ilaha illa ant, there is no Lord worthy or no deity worthy of worship except you. خلقتني وأنا عبدك, you have created me and I am your servant. وأنا على عهدك ووعدك ما استطعت, oh Allah, I am upon the covenant and the promise that I have with you as much as I am able. أعوذ بك من شر ما صنعت, oh Allah, I seek refuge in you from the evil what I have done. أبوء لك بنعمتك علي, oh Allah, I admit all of the favors that you have given upon me. وأبوء بذنبي, oh Allah, I admit all of my sins. فاغفر لي, so forgive me. فإنه لا يغفر الذنوب إلا أنت, because there is no other deity besides you that can forgive sins except you. Again, this is in Sahih Bukhari. There's a footnote here. من قالها موقنا بها, whoever says this with full yaqeen, with full certainty that Allah will forgive him, حين يمسي, whenever he says this in the morning, فمات من ليلته دخل الجنة. If a person says this in the morning, in the evening, and he says this with full yaqeen, iman, with a connection with Allah, if he dies by night, then he will enter in Jannah. And if he says this in the morning and he dies during that day, then he will enter into Jannah. Now, we will look at this hadith in greater detail bi'idhnillah next week, because I think this would warrant an actual sitting in itself. And bi'idhnillah, we've got a book that a brother has donated to hand out, so we'll go through that book bi'idhnillah next week. However, there has been many explanations when it comes to this narration by many of the ulama. And Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah in Majmu' al-Fatawa talks about, he's actually got a risala in explaining this, and what we have looked at in preparation for this lesson here is what he has actually said in this risala. But there is another explanation that we'll go through bi'idhnillah next week, which is a bit more detailed, so we'll return to some of the benefits here. But what he said, Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, is that istighfar, a person seeking to have his sins forgiven from Allah, makes the heart move. It makes the heart move, and it makes the heart act. Why do you come to salah? So that Allah, may Allah will accept for me and have mercy on me. Why am I good to other people? Why am I good to my children? Why am I good to my parents? Why? Because the person is motivated and the heart wants that kind of goodness. So even when a person is making istighfar, he has that level of optimism and no despair. And it removes, Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah said, it removes blindness away from that heart once he has established the full fruits of that istighfar. It removes that veil of sin, it removes that veil of blackness that the Prophet ﷺ talked about in Surah Mutaffifin. That when they do bad deeds, the heart becomes harder and harder. But istighfar makes your heart go softer and softer, and it cleanses it. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah said that more istighfar removes the hardness, and it removes the veil, and it transfers that heart and that body into guidance. And for this reason, he said that this particular one, and the wording that is found within this, is from the best way. That's why it's from the chief of the istighfar. Because within this, we have certain characteristics in this istighfar which are not found in any other istighfar. And you will see a lot of parables between what the Prophet ﷺ says in this istighfar here, and he's the Khatim al-Nabiyyin, and what Yunus ﷺ said when he was in the belly of the whale. He said, Rahimahullah ibn Taymiyyah, just like Allahumma Rabbi, there is an idea now in the beginning of affirmation, confession. And he goes on to say, Rahimahullah, just like you have created me from your names and attributes, oh Allah, you are the one that has put me in this dunya, and you are perfect in your names and your attributes, and I have come about, and I am not perfect in my names and my attributes. So forgive me by your names and attributes, so that I can have my proper life back. Day and night I'm committing sin, and day and night I'm deviating from what is proper, and the reason why you have created me from perfection, but there's only perfection for you, Ya Allah. So when you make this istighfar, what you are doing is you are asking Allah for you to be liberated, that you can be upright, that you can have that blindness removed so that you can be proper. Why do you need to have a contract? Again, I'm summarizing what he has said and just picking out bits from his fatwa and his risala on this. Why does a person need to have a contract? Because, number one, a person has been created from Allah, and Allah Jalla wa Ala has given this person a chance to come into the dunya, but there's only one particular way that you can have salvation. And when you come into this dunya, everyone's going to try and sell you a contract. Everyone's going to try and pull you away and say, come work for me, and give you an alternative covenant. And if you don't know what that contract is, and if you don't renew that contract, then you will be led astray. Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah. So if we act upon the beginning of the Sayyid al-Istighfar, making affirmation of his tawheed and submission towards it, and affirming that you have this contract with him, then what you will end up doing is you will want to seek to please your master. And when you want to seek to please your master will be pleased. Your master will be pleased. It's not that you are displaying goodness and Allah is going to reject it and say, you didn't do it this way, I want to do it that way. And Allah is going to appreciate every kind of goodness that you do towards him. And nothing is wasted with Allah. Yes, obviously there could be things that we could be doing better. There's no doubt about that. However, Allah is appreciative. Allah is a shakur. And Allah will take any goodness that you have got from you and He will multiply it, even though He wants it in a way that is better. However, Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah said that there are created masters. There's only one divine master, but there are created masters. And those created masters want you to sacrifice something from yourself, whether it's your deen or your dunya or both, to give it to them. But they will not give you anything back. They will not give you anything back. These created masters will not give you anything back. However, your divine master, if you please him, he will show you mercy, and he will return you to your fitrah without wanting anything for himself. Jalla wa ala. What we also do in this Sayyid al-Istighfar is that we admit all fault for us. Now there is a huge benefit in this, in Aqidah, which is that no harm and no imperfection and no evil is ascribed to Allah. The Prophet ﷺ used to say, وَالشَّرُّ لَيْسَ إِلَيْكَ, and evilness and bad consequences that we find within the creation is not your fault, ya Allah, it's the fault of me and the fault of all of Bani Adam and jinn and the creation that's within it. And this is very important because now people are asking, why is there so much evil in the earth? Why did Allah create Iblis? Why are there so many different religions if Allah wants you to be upon one way? There are all these different misconceptions that people are asking, and a lot of it ends up in people becoming atheists because they don't have an answer to it. If a person has firmness in his aqeedah, and this is one of the things that we would benefit from these morning and evening adhkar, the more you contemplate on it, the more you learn from it, the more you benefit from it, then the more upright we will be in this. I admit all fault is mine, and whatever we see in the creation from badness is because of what we have done ourselves. And evilness cannot be ascribed to Allah. Did Allah want Iblis to be evil? No, He did that from Himself. Does Allah want us to be evil towards one another? No. Therefore, how can you blame Islam for the evil? And there is much more that can be said about this, but we'll move on. I admit all of your favors, and I admit all of my mistakes. Meaning that I cannot thank and worship you in a manner that you deserve, Ya Allah. So in summary, in conclusion of this Sayyid Istighfar, Ubudiyyah and servitude to Allah, worshipping Him alone, is to know who created you, why He created you, and all of the answers can be found in this particular dhikr. Who created you? Why He created you? What relationship that you have with Him, and if you understand these three, then you will know that all opportunities and goodness that you have are owed to Him and go back to Him. He is the one that can give you and change your affairs and benefit you, and all ascription of good, it goes back to Him. And if a person has slipped, or if a person makes mistakes, or there is a level of ignorance or negligence, then that door of you having improvement is always open. And even though we won't be able to worship Him in the manner that He deserves, this is how the dhikr of this particular narration ends, is that Allah, you are far greater, and you are more accepting, even though I can't thank you and worship you in the manner that you deserve, but please accept it because you are my Rabb. And your Lordness is greater than my servitude. Your forgiveness is greater than my mistakes. And this is why it's called the Sayyid al-Istighfar. Should we take the next hadith or should we stop? What do you think? One more? Hadith number 80. We'll keep it brief. Hadith number 80, the Prophet ﷺ, now this is a bit contentious because there are some ulama who have said that this narration is weak. When the Prophet ﷺ, and this is an authority of Anas bin Malik, when the Prophet ﷺ used to enter into the morning or the evening, he used to say, Allahumma inni asbahtu, or he will say, Allahumma inni amsaytu, ushhiduka, wa ushhidu hamalata arshik, وملائكتك وجميع خلقك أنك أنت الله لا إله إلا أنت وحدك لا شريك لك وأن محمدا عبدك ورسولك. Oh Allah, I have entered into the morning again or the evening, and I bear witness alongside those who are carrying the arsh and all of the rest of your angels and all of your creation, that you alone are Allah, and there is no deity worthy of worship except you alone, and there are no partners, and that Muhammad ﷺ is your slave and your messenger. Now, the Prophet ﷺ said, whoever says that once, a quarter of him will be saved from the hellfire. Whoever says that twice, half of him will be freed from the hellfire. Not saved, freed from the hellfire. Morning and evening. Whoever says this once, in the morning, for the rest of that day, a quarter of him will be freed from the hellfire. Whoever says it twice, half of him. Whoever says it 3 times, 3/4. Whoever says it 4 times, completely, his whole body will be saved and freed from the hellfire. Every morning and evening, alternating. And this is found in Abu Dawud. Abu Dawud himself, sakata an. And what this means is, and this is from the terminologies of Abu Dawud, is that whenever he was quiet on a particular hadith, it would mean that he has made it authentic. However, Shaykh al-Albani said that this hadith is da'if, because there's a narrator in here, and his name is Baqiya ibn Walid, and he is known as Mudallis. And a Mudallis is a person who would skip out narrators. So say there was a person that he heard it from, and another person that he heard it from, so I would basically say, I would skip out my father's name, and I would mention my grandfather's name, even though I didn't mention my grandfather. This is Mudallis, that he skipped out on purpose a name of a narrator. And there is also some jahala and some kind of ambiguity surrounding other narrators. So Imam al-Albani rahimahullah said that this narration is da'if in his checking of Abu Dawud. However, others from the ulama, Imam al-Nawawi said that isnad is jayyid, which means that it can be strengthened. Ibn al-Qayyim said that it is hasan, again, strengthened. Ibn Hajar, Ibn Baz, others from the ulama, and also here himself has opined that this narration is acceptable. There's another narration. So now we have one narration which says that if you say it once a quarter, if you say it twice, half, etc., until you completely are freed from the hellfire. There's another narration that the Prophet ﷺ, he said that if a person says that, then all of his sins will be forgiven. If a person says it in the morning, then all of his sins for the rest of that day will be forgiven, and whoever says in the evening, for the rest of it will be forgiven. So there are two narrations, and this is why the ulama have said that they can be reinforced with one another. Therefore, bi'idhnillah, that this is something that can be said. However, others from the ulama, and this is Shaykh Albani himself, has said that this particular wording here is da'if. But there is another narration which is similar to this, which is sahih. And that narration goes, Allahumma inni ushhiduka, similar, wa ushhidu ملائكتك وحملة عرشك وأشهد من في السماوات ومن في الأرض أنك أنت الله لا إله إلا أنت وحدك لا شريك لك وأشهد أن محمد عبدك ورسولك. Slightly different in wording, but the narration is similar. Whoever says this 3 times, a third of him will be freed. If he says it 2 times, then 2/3 of him will be free. And whoever says it a 3rd time, then he'll be completely free. Shaykh al-Albani said that this one is sahih. However, what a lot of the ulama have said is the one which has 4 times, and the one that has been narrated here in Hisn Muslim. Allahumma inni asbahtu is as if to say, oh Allah, I've entered your morning. This is your morning and I've entered it. I have no choice. I don't say I want to enter the morning. Now it's come upon me. And now this is now affirming again rububiyyah. What happens in the next line is the shahada of uluhiyyah. And so again, we have a correlation between uluhiyyah and uluhiyyah. But what we find is particular to this one is that the person is allying himself with the pious. Ushhidu wa ushhidu hamalata arshik. I bear witness with the same testimony with those angels who are carrying your arsh. What we can learn from this, that Allah actually has malaika who are carrying his arsh. Like Allah says in Surah Zumar, وَتَرَى الْمَلَائِكَةَ حَافِّينَ مِنْ حَوْلِ الْعَرْشِ يُسَبِّحُونَ بِحَمْدِ رَبِّهِمْ. The angels are now described as carrying Allah, his arsh, and they are barefooted, and they are making tasbih of Allah. When you enter the morning, when you make this dhikr, and when you enter the evening, you make this dhikr, you are allying yourselves with them. You are saying, oh Allah, I'm praising you like they are praising you. Respect from your creation can be multiplied in his reward and his status with Allah. What we can learn from this also is that the angels are the best of creation, and this is a form of tawassul through actions. Oh Allah, I'm doing the same thing as them, so have mercy on me. Oh Allah, I'm doing the same thing as them, so elevate me. Oh Allah, I'm submitting. Unlike those from Jami'a Khalq. This is particular here. Hamalata arshik wa malaikatak. Those are those who are pious, those who are the best of Allah's creation, who have entered into Islam and are worshipping Allah. However, wa jami'a khalqiq, the rest of the creation, maybe it's 50-50, maybe it's less, maybe it's 80-20, maybe it's 95-5, where most of the creation are the creation of Allah, and by the virtue of entering into the morning and evening, they are affirming in themselves that they are servants of Allah. Voluntarily, they won't do that. Voluntarily, they won't do that. What you are saying here, oh Allah, the best of your creation are voluntarily worshipping you. And the rest of your creation are voluntarily or involuntarily worship you. Oh Allah, include me of those who are voluntarily worshipping you and the best of your creation. Annaka anta Allah. Oh Allah, I am testifying that there is no deity worthy of worship except you alone. without any partners. Oh Allah, we are with them even though the rest of the earth are not with them. Oh Allah, we are connected to the Akhirah and Jannah and being allied and being with the Malaika for eternity. Not this temporary dunya which is bound to perish, irrespective of how many people bear witness to your oneness or not, and bear witness to the coming of Muhammad ﷺ and him being a servant and a messenger or not. Oh Allah, if you take us in this evening, if you take us in this morning, we are the patrons of those malaika who are carrying your arsh in this dunya. So elevate us, Ya Allah. What this also teaches us, and this is a benefit that Shaykh Abdul Razak al-Badr said, is that the Prophet ﷺ saying this 4 times every morning and evening. What is the relevance? Why would he say this every morning and every evening? One of the biggest lessons that we learn from this is that Tawheed needs to be renewed. Tawheed needs to be renewed. Nobody can say, well, I did Kitab al-Tawheed when I was a young man and I'm doing something else. No. Tawheed needs to be renewed. Now that could possibly be in the form of one book, Kitab al-Tawheed. It could be in a person benefiting from tafsir or other, but Tawheed needs to be renewed. Tawheed is not something which is guaranteed. Tawheed needs to be refreshed. Tawheed needs to be reinforced. And your level of refreshment and renewal will dictate how much you will have a freeing from the fire. So if you say it once a quarter, if you say it half. If you say it 3 times, if you say it 4 times, inshallah. But is that person who says it 4 times without khushu the same as the person who says it with khushu, with firmness and strength in Tawheed? Obviously it's not. So Shaykh Abdul Razak al-Badr, Hafidhullah, said that Tawheed needs to be renewed, and the level and the quality of that renewal will dictate how close he is to Allah, to the angels carrying the arsh, and how successful he will be in the akhirah. One last point here, that the author now is saying arba marrat, that a person should say this 4 times. Now, as a fiqh benefit, and this is a principle within fiqh, which is that some dhikr are known as muqayyid, and some dhikr are known as mutlaq. Now, muqayyid is either specified in its amount, in the time, or in the place. There is a specific instruction for that dhikr. Then we have mutlaq, which is open. Can you say istighfar anytime you want? Of course you can. Can you say subhanallah without any restriction? Of course you can. Can you say la ilaha illallah? You can say it without any restriction. However, now, if you were to say, let me say la ilaha illallah before Salatul Fajr every day, 10 times, that would now become muqayyid, because we have done it for time, you've done it for place, and you've done it for the amount. Muqayyid needs dalil. Mutlaq, general dalil would be sufficient. And this is exactly what we said in the beginning in the discussion that we had with Shaykh Qasim. One of the benefits that the ulama have said when it comes to mutlaq and muqayyid, and we will revisit this bi'idhnillah next week, so we'll talk about different benefits that come from mutlaq and muqayyid, but this is just as an introduction. Some are general, some are unrestricted, mutlaq, and some are restricted to time and place and number, which is muqayyid. The ulama have stated, and this is something which is very important for us to understand, because we live in a society where there is a lot of innovation, which is that you will not find a dhikr, before I mention that, all of the muqayyid when it comes to the number must be preserved. So if it says 4 times, you can't make that 5. If it says 10 times, you can't make that 15. That's one point. The second point, which I was going to lead to, which is that all of the muqayyid, you will not find a dhikr which has been prescribed more than 100. You will not find dhikr which is muqayyid, which is more than 100, which is muqayyid. And now we'll talk about this bi'idhnillah next week, that sometimes the muqayyid will then transfer itself into the mutlaq. So now the Prophet ﷺ used to say istighfar 70 times, 100 times. Can you say 1,000 times? Of course you can. But that will then need a transfer from yourself from muqayyid into mutlaq. However, here we have arba marrat that the Shaykh has said. Therefore, that muqayyid would need to stay as being muqayyid in its 4 times. And this way of benefit of saying that there is nothing which is muqayyid more than 100, that now refutes the innovations, including from what you will find in the books of fiqh. You will not find any book of fiqh from which is an official madhab saying that you should do a khatam, which is for 1,000 times, or we should gather and you say subhanallah, you say alhamdulillah, you say something else 1,000 times, or you do yasin 10 times and you do yasin 10 times, or so that we can all gather 1,000 times, for example. And all of that is an innovation, and it contradicts what the ulama of fiqh have said when it comes to some of the principles that are related to azkar, which are muqayyid and mutlaq. Ask Allah to make this beneficial for us all, and that Allah forgives us for our shortcomings, and He makes us of those who are close to Him, and that He gives us the ability to fulfill our ubudiyyah and our contract that we have with Him, so that we are taken in our life in this dunya with our second passing as those people who are successful. هذا والله أعلم وصلى اللهم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. بإذن الله we'll continue morning and evening azkar next week.
I think it's Allahumma bismika amutu wa ahya.
As for sleeping, Bismika Allahumma amutu wa ahya.
Allahumma ismika amutu wa ahya.
Allahumma ismika amutu wa ahya. I don't know if from the evening azkar you sing, or the evening morning. I don't know.
Wake up. And the other one is
These are from the morning and these are not morning. These are from the waking up. Yeah, these are from the waking up and going to sleep azkar. Now this is a very important question that you're saying. I don't because Alhamdulillah ahyana ba'da ma amatana wa ilayhi nushur and Bismika Allahumma amutu wa ahya. These are from the azkar which are from the morning and the evening. Now, Uncle has asked this question, can we say that from the morning and the evening azkar? This is now reinforcing what we said last week, which is that Kursi in itself, Faraq al-Nas and Ikhlas, they are not from the azkar which are morning and evening for themselves. The Prophet ﷺ used to say them in the morning and in the evening, just like Alhamdulillah Ahyana or Bismillah. That would be said in the morning. Obviously, you're going to sleep in the morning, or you're going to in the evening, or you wake up in the morning. They are not from the azkar which are said in the morning and the evening per se, but they are said in the morning and afternoon. So there is a very important difference in that. So that reinforces what we said about Kursi and doing the Maw'idatain, Faraq al-Nas 3 times. That what seems to be apparent is that they should be said after Salat al-Fajr, after Salat al-Maghrib, and it's not from the morning and evening.
That's the morning evening. When is the beginning time and the end time?
When is the morning time, when is the end time for the morning and evening azkar? We looked at this last week, and there's actually a person asking the same question here. What is the prescribed time for the morning and evening azkar? Now, the ulama have said, linguistically, the morning begins at dawn, subh as-sadiq, not the subh al-kadhib. As soon as the white line comes on our horizon, that's when morning has begun. That continues until zawal. All that period is sabah. After zawal, it starts to go down. That becomes masa all the way until the beginning or the end of Maghrib and the beginning of Isha. The end of Maghrib and the beginning of Isha. Once you hit Isha, that's Layl. And that's when the Layl starts, and that continues until Fajr. So some of the ulama have said that this is the linguistic way of looking at it. The linguistic. When it comes to the Sharia way of looking at it, morning starts off same, horizon, when the white line appears. And that continues until Shuruq. That is the time when you should be doing the morning azkar. However, if a person has a genuine reason, sleep has overcome him, he's tired, or he's making the azkar and he falls asleep, for example, then linguistically he's got until zawal because it's still morning. And inshallah, if you can make qada of rawatib and you can make qada of nawafil, then you can make qada of al-azkar. So what the ulama have said, that he has left what is better, however, it can continue. Same thing when it comes to the evening. So the evening, linguistically is after Zawal. However, the khilaf now between the ulama, when's the best time? Is it after Asr or after Maghrib? A lot of the ulama, as we found last week, there's many ayat in the Quran which support the Ghudu wal Asal talking about the end of the day, which is after Salat al-Asr. And Ibn Rajab, like we said last week also, is reinforced in the Sharia, because after Asr and after Fajr there is no rawatib. After Maghrib there is. So it makes more sense that after Asr you will sit and you will supplicate and you remember Allah, rather than pray Maghrib, then pray your rawatib, then do the dhikr. Allah is telling us through the Sharia here, after Fajr make dhikr, after Asr make dhikr. This is more important than praying Salah. So it begins at Asr and it ends at Isha. It ends at Maghrib. Asr to Maghrib. However, again, if you've missed it, if you got busy, whatever, then I can continue until Salat al-Isha. This is the best way. However, this is the adhkar. When it comes to the linguistic, we have that set down between morning and evening. But when it comes to Salat, when does the morning begin? Again, horizon, and that continues until shuruq. After shuruq it becomes duha. After zawal it becomes dhuhr and dhahira and asr, and then it becomes maghrib. Maghrib becomes layl. So now you see there's a difference between dhikr, and there's a difference between salah, and there's a difference between the linguistic definition of what morning and evening is. So technically now, obviously now we're living in a country where Salat al-Isha is very late. If a person thinks, okay, well it's 9:30, I'm going to pray Salat al-Maghrib, and I'm going to pray my Qiyam al-Layl now until 11:30, which is the latest Salat al-Isha, inshallah it will be accepted from him. He's prayed from the very beginning of the early of the night. And then after 11:30, pray Salat al-Isha and go to sleep. There's no harm in that. So that is the technical, the linguistic, and then the technicalities when it comes to adhkar of the technicalities of adhkar and technicalities of salat. You answer it. Barakallah.
There's a particular
Okay.
There's a particular position to, for example, you finish Fajr and you're sitting like iftirash.
Yeah.
And then you just sit cross-legged for...
Is there a particular position that a person can sit in when he's making dhikr of Allah? In the morning, in the evening, or in general, in that manner, in that light, which is that the Prophet ﷺ said, Sayyidul Julus, the best of Julus, again like Sayyidul Istighfar, everything has a Sayyid. Sayyidul Julus, the best way of sitting is when you are sitting in front, facing the Qibla. So in actual fact, the way you guys are sitting now is actually better than the way I am sitting. And even some of the ulama from the Salaf, is that they used to facing the Qibla, and they used to sit on a chair whilst the people, Tulab al-Ilm, used to face the Shaykh whilst he was giving the dars. So the Shaykh used to sit on the chair, and this has been mentioned by Dhahabi and others from the ulama, he used to sit on the chair facing the Qibla, and he used to make either Sama or Ard, he used to say the hadith, or he used to listen to the hadith and then explain the hadith, and the Tulab would be facing the Shaykh. So the best way in the direction is to face the Qibla. How does a person sit? Then the best way that is going to increase him in khushu'. The best way. So if you say now he needs to sit iftirashan, but then he gets pins and needles, or he has a pain in his leg, but he thinks, no, this is the best way, and he continues, but the quality is going to affect it, then the point here is the quality. الَّذِينَ يَذْكُرُونَ اللَّهَ قِيَامًا وَقُعُودًا وَعَلَى. So now here Allah is saying that Allah is talking about those people who are consistent in worshipping Allah, and there is no set position. There's also a narration in Bukhari and Muslim that Aisha radiallahu anha, she used to have the Messenger of Allah and his head used to be in her lap, and he used to be reciting the Quran while he is lying down, and she would sit there listening to him. So now here, the point here is that whatever is going to be beneficial. Some of the ulama have said that if a person needs to sit, there is a fiqh debate. Some of them said iftirashan. Some of them said murabba'an, that's when your legs are crossed like that, because that is more of a settlement. Some of them said no, iftirash, that's how the Prophet used to sit in the final tashahhud. However, what seems to be the correct way, and this is what they mean, many of the ulama have said, so whatever's easy for you, whatever's best for you, whatever's going to give you more khushu'. So now if a person, obviously in that time they didn't have chairs, but if a person needed to sit down, at that time of the Prophet, time of the Salaf, they had to sit amongst the Saf, there was no chair. How does he sit? This is the khilaf. Is it more adab for him to sit tawarruk, iftirashan, with his legs out, with his legs more up, this became the fiqhi debate. So if this is the fiqhi debate when it comes inside of the salah, then outside of the salah also would apply. And what seems to be the correct opinion, so the Hanabila have said that you should say murabba, and others, the Hanafis have said that you should say iftirash like this, because this is the adab, sit in the most respectful way. However, what seems to be the correct opinion is that what the point is not how you are sitting. The point is that how you are directing your ibadah to Allah. So khushu is the most important thing. So now, the best way I would say, if you can, sit iftirashan, facing the qibla. If you can't do that, sit murabba'an with your legs crossed, facing the qibla. If you can't do that, sit whatever way you can, facing the qibla. If you can't do that, then sit with your side. There's no harm. Wallahu a'lam. Subhanakallah wa bihamdik. Yes, uncle.
I've read somewhere that before you, after Fajr and your azkar, you recite Allahumma ajirni min al-nar 7 times without speaking to anybody.
That's right, yeah. We looked at that when we were talking about the hadith and the adhkar after the salat. After Salat al-Fajr and after Salat al-Maghrib, there's narration Sunan Nasa'i. If a person says Allahumma ajirni min al-nar 7 times, qabla ma yatakallam, before he says anything to anybody, Allah will free him from the hellfire. Some of the ulama said that this hadith is weak. However, many of the ulama from the madhahib have accepted it. And the ulama of hadith themselves have accepted it. Ibn Hajar has said that this hadith is acceptable and it's a good chain and it can be reinforced. Ibn Baz, rahimahullah, said the same thing. And others from the ulama who are contemporary today, Shaykh Salih Fawzan, others from the ulama, said no, the hadith is acceptable. So, bi'idhnillah, what I side with is that you should say Allahumma ajirni min al-nar, Allahumma ajirni min al-nar 7 times after Salat al-Fajr, after Salat al-Maghrib, bi'idhnillah.